Happiness doesn't matter. Why should a man care if he's happy? A man should not be concerned whether he's happy or not. These are all statements that we hear on this side of the internet. When you get into self-improvement, you're likely to encounter these beliefs that a man shouldn't care if he's happy. A man should never be concerned if he's happy. Happiness doesn't matter. Ask a teenage boy today, are you happy? And I can guarantee that 90% of them will say, you don't need to be happy. Why should I care if I'm happy? Why should I care if this, and that? It's like, I actually think we've been brainwashed to believe that happiness doesn't matter. People will tell you that, you shouldn't care if you're happy. But controversially, or uncontroversially, I believe that you should care if you're happy. And I actually believe that you should be happy. Because at the end of the day, this is your life. All the material things that you achieve when you're on your deathbed, they won't matter. Do you think you'll care about the $5 million that you got when you're about to die? When it will mean nothing once you're dead? You'll probably care about the life you lived if you're satisfied with your life. And I'm not saying don't chase wealth. I'm saying live a life that will make you satisfied. Live a life that will make you happy. Because at the end of the day, you can have everything in the world. But if you're unhappy, then what's the point? What's the point of having $10 million and being unhappy? What's the point of spending the one life that you have being unhappy? Because people will be like, I want to get money, I want to get this, I want to get that. Like, that is important. I'm not saying don't get it. I'm just saying that it won't matter. And like, it's very rich coming from someone who doesn't have a lot of material success yet. But I truly believe it's the truth. Because whenever I have achieved certain things, once you've achieved a certain thing, it's like, it doesn't matter. You get acclimatized to it very fast. What matters is whether you're happy. But before I explain why you should care whether you're happy, I need to clarify my definition of happiness. And my definition of happiness is the absence of unhappy or negative thoughts. So when you look at this definition of happiness being the absence of unhappy or negative thoughts, it would make sense to want to be happy, because we know that as a man thinketh, so he is. So if you always have negative thoughts, if you always have unhappy thoughts, as a man thinketh, so he is, you will become negative, you will become unhappy, you will become the physical manifestation of those thoughts. And now you can see why it's good to be happy, because the absence of negative and unhappy thoughts will mean that you're thinking neutral or positive thoughts. So by the law of as a man thinketh, so he is, you will become neutral at the very least, but you will become positive. You will become the manifestation of those thoughts that
TJ!
That lack negativity. The main reason why I believe that we should be happy is because happiness is the first thing we learn. And I'll clarify that. Have you ever met an unhappy child? Like a pessimistic child? Like, fair enough, you probably have met a pessimistic child, but they're so few and so rare that it's like when you meet a pessimistic child, you're like, damn, like, what's going on? Like, children are just naturally happy. And people may say that it's because children are naive. They don't know the complications of this world. They haven't been exposed to all there is to see. That may be true. But the fact that we learn to be happy, happiness can be seen as our default state when we live a proper centered life. Like, does it make sense that the very first thing you learn is a thing you'll never have? Like, imagine when you go to school, you learn addition, right? Addition is happiness, like it's simple, addition. Now, by the time you get to A-level maths, does it make sense for you to have forgotten how to do addition? No, because it was the first thing you learned. So it's actually quite puzzling as to why we unlearn how to be happy. And I think it's because of all the conditioning, all the things we're exposed to. We forget that as a man thinketh, so he is. We forget, or not even forget, we fail to realize the truth that no event can make you unhappy. And it's only your thoughts. We develop the habit of uncontrolled thought. So when these events that could cause negative thinking happen, we let our minds go uncontrolled. And eventually, our minds will lead to negative thoughts, and those negative thoughts will take away from our happiness. Those negative thoughts will influence us and they'll mold us into the type of person who has those negative thoughts, who focuses on those negative thoughts. And through this, we blame events for our unhappiness. We blame everything else for our unhappiness but ourselves. Because at the end of the day, no event can make you unhappy. It's only your thought. It's only the way you think about it. And I'll say this again. The other week, I sold cricket kits. It was worth $200. And I got $13 for it. There was a mess up in the whole situation. That did not make me unhappy. Because I didn't see it. I didn't allow myself to see it as a bad thing. I didn't allow myself to have unhappy, negative thoughts towards the situation. I just flipped it and I was like, it's a positive, lesson learned, whatever. And it didn't make me sad. So on to the next point, which will address something that you may be thinking. And this thought may be that, I shouldn't always do the things that make me happy or whatever. Like, if I prioritize happiness, I won't be able to improve myself. And I know for a fact that if you're watching my videos, you want to improve yourself. You want to reach your highest potential. You want to be the best version of yourself. So now let me ask you one question. Would the best version of yourself be happy or unhappy? Just think about it. The best version of yourself, the absolute best scenario that you could create. Would he be happy or would he be sad? Would his mind be filled with positive thoughts? Or would they be filled with unhappy, negative thoughts? So if you know that your best version would have happy thoughts, why do you think that you shouldn't care if you're happy now? Why do you think that you shouldn't cultivate a mind that distinguishes negative and unhappy thoughts? Because if that's what your best version is going to be like, if that's what your best version will have, if your best version of yourself is going to be happy, why not be happy today? And when I say happy, I don't mean do things that are reckless. There's a difference between being happy and being reckless. I go to the gym every day. I don't even force myself. I read every day. I do productive habits every day. And I am happiest when I do those things. Why? Because I know that my future self is going to be much better. I know that my future self is going to have a much better life. And that makes me happy. There's a difference between pleasure and happiness. And sometimes when you tell people that you should prioritize your happiness, they mistake pleasure for happiness. Because pleasure and happiness aren't the same thing. People will be like, I shouldn't care if I'm happy because if I care if I'm happy, if I prioritize my happiness, I might as well just go do weed. I might as well do cocaine. I might as well drink. But that's pleasure. I've had many times where I've been in many pleasurable situations. And I haven't been happy. As soon as they've ended, even while they're going on, at the back of my mind, I'll be unhappy. It may be more subtle than during other periods in the day, but the truth still stands that I would be unhappy. So back to my point of your best self being happy. People, especially I recently went through a breakup. I'm not even gonna lie to you, it was tough. It was tough. And my productivity went on overdrive. And I adopted the belief that, you know what, negative emotions, they are very valuable if fueled towards productive things. But to always use negative emotions is not the way. And that's something you may have been thinking. You may have been thinking, negative emotions serve as better fuel than positive emotions. But they may serve as better fuel in the short term, and actually they do serve as better fuel in the short term. But imagine being fueled by negative fuel your whole life. Imagine running away from something your whole life, because that's what negative fuel is. You're running away from something. You're running away from a situation that you don't like. Eventually, that negative fuel will destroy you. You can't function on negativity. You can't function on that for a long time. You can function on it.
TJ!
You can function on it in the short term, but long term you can't. I truly believe that I'm more effective when I'm happy, and I know for a fact you are. You may think that you're not effective when you're happy, but when you're happy, there's a lack of negative and unhappy thoughts. So imagine working with a lack of negative thoughts. That would be a state of faith. Imagine working with full faith in what you're doing. To be successful, we all know that you need to do something that will induce some sort of flow state. And in a flow state, you have no thoughts. You're fully focused on the thing you're doing. So when you're in a flow state, you're happy. Because by virtue of the fact that there are no thoughts going through your mind, there are no negative thoughts. So you're happy. Because I believe that if you're not unhappy, then you're happy. Like, for me, it's just black and white. The world is easier that way when I say it's black and white. If you're happy, you'll be able to approach the problems in your life better. You won't have that tunnel vision of like, I'm unhappy, I'm gonna do this, and then you make things seem so bad when in fact they're not. So to conclude this video, I'm gonna give you this analogy. Life is a game, and let's say you have two players. Player one enjoys the game. He's happy when he's playing the game. He's happy in the game. Player two is unhappy in the game. But he plays because he has to play. He plays because he knows it's the right thing to do. He's doing whatever he's doing his duty. Which player do you think will complete more of the game? Which player do you think will level up the most? The one who genuinely is enjoying the game, the one who is happy, or the one who is doing it because it's his duty? And you may be thinking that I'll be happy when I have X, whatever X represents for you. But there's someone who has X and is telling themselves they'll be happy when they have X squared. But on the flip side, there's someone who has 10% of X, who is happy with 10% of X, but is still pursuing X, but he's happy how he is. And at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, when your material possessions no longer matter, because when you're about to die, do you think you really care about your mansion? Do you think you really care about your Lamborghini? When you're on your deathbed, when all you care about is the life you lived, the relationships you had, do you think you will regret focusing on being happy? Not being unproductive. Being happy doesn't mean being unproductive. Do you think you would appreciate a life lived full of happiness?